So, dear students, let's start today's lecture. In last class, we discussed why F4 is important, why it is placed before F5, why the law is being learned by the accountant who is deemed to be the financial reporting expert. So, why he is basically going to learn business law and corporate law, and what is our methodology for F4 study. So all that was discussed in previous class. Now today we are going to start chapter number 1, that is introduction to law. So today, from today, we are starting introduction to law. So today we are going to define what is law, what are the sources of law in context to UK, and what are the important elements of the law that are important. So basically, let's start from the definition of law. So how we are going to define the law. So let's start. Law is a formal mechanism of social control. So what is law and how we are going to define law? Many authors have defined law very differently. There are many definitions available in industry and in market. So the most simplest definition is that law is a formal mechanism of social control. So what does it mean by social control? So society is social. All the individuals, groups, companies, communities are within a society. So basically, social means society, individuals, groups, community. So all these elements makes a society. So whoever is living in a society, he has his own rights. So whether they are individuals, whether they are bunch of individuals like groups, or there is a whole community, they all have different rights attached to them. So what are the different rights that a person, that a human being has when they are living in a society? So for example, they have right to live, the most important right. Everyone has the right to live, whether he has two hands or three hands, whether he has perfect shape of his body or not, whether he's male or female, whether he's transgender, whatever properties he has ultimate right to live. So, like this, there are other rights. For example, there is a right of freedom, there is a right of expression. Everyone has freedom to whatever he wants, he can do. If he wants to basically educate himself, he wants to take admission, yes, he can take admission in a university. Whatever he wants to express, whatever his thoughts are, he can express it in a good manner. So these are a right of a person. For example, right of equality. So every person in the society must be treated equally. Then there is a right of freedom of thought. So every person may think about anything, and these are his thoughts. He might think how this world came into existence. So this is his freedom. He can think about world's order. He can think about any person. He can think about, or he can have thoughts differently rather than the society's thought. So he can think whatever he wants. So these are some rights of a person who is living in a society. So there are also freedom of religion. So these are some of the basic rights a person has, and these are the rights of individuals living in a society. Same is the case for the groups. So there may be a case that there are different groups that are living in a society. So each group has these rights. A community has these rights. So in a society, every member has his rights. So what is social control? Basically, hold for a moment. So, dear students, these are the rights of an individual who is living in a society. So, what does it mean by social control? So, social control means that if a person A has these rights, so we have to protect him against Mr. B. So, if Mr. B can violate the rights of A, so we have to protect them so that no one can get in dispute to other person. So to make sure that we cannot abuse A, we cannot violate these rights, for example, the right to live, right of freedom, right of expression, right of equality, right of freedom of thoughts, right of religion. There are also other rights like social protection, right of opinion, for example, right of consciousness, right of marriage, right of fair trial. So there are many rights available in a society that is provided by the constitution to every individual living in that society. So the important point here is that social control means we have to control the society. And how we are going to control the society so that no one can violate the rights of other person? So we can achieve this through a mechanism, and that mechanism can be formal or informal. So formal means that we are going to make rules, procedures, regulations. So this is how we formally bind all individuals that they must follow certain rules. So this is a formal mechanism. There may be an informal mechanism as well. So how can we informally basically create a mechanism of social control? So it can be morality, it can be through religion, ethics. So these are some of the informal mechanism. So which way is better? Which of the options is better for social control? So to understand this, let's have an example. For example, this is an intersection. This is a road. This is also a road. So The roads are crossing here, and this is an intersection. So there are some cars coming from this way, they want to go to this way. There are some cars coming from this way and they want to go straight. So the traffic is going on and everyone is in hurry. So how we are going to control this intersection? So once again, there are two ways. First, formal. We can create a formal mechanism. Second, we can create an informal mechanism. So if we are going to control this intersection through informal mechanism, we are going for example, morality. So morality means what is right and what is wrong. So if this person A is coming here and he is going to office and he wants to go straight, but there is another person B, he is going to hospital. So according to morality, who has first right to cross the intersection? So according to morality, Mr. B is in emergency. He has to go to hospital first. So according to morality, B must pass before Mr. A, but Mr. A won't be able to know this information. So he'll try to go first and Mr. B also will try to go first. So what will happen? They can have a crash over here. So if Mr. A's car crash with Mr. B's car, so neither Mr. B is going to basically visit hospital at correct time, nor Mr. A will be able to basically reach to their office at time. So this means that both of the person are not able to basically reach for their places if there are no rules and regulations and if this intersection is without any formal control. So morality is not going to control the society because there are different moralities, religion and ethics. So these are subjective base. Moralities are subjective. For some person an act can be right, for another person same act can be wrong. So morality is different with the sex of the persons or with the gender of the person and with respect to different groups of the persons. So if we are going to keep this intersection open with informal mechanism, after 1 hour, this intersection will be blocked because everyone will try to go first and none of them will be able to reach their destination. So if none of them is going to reach their destination, this means that their rights are violated. None of them will be able to reach their destination. So it's a violation of their rights because Mr. A had right to go to his office. Same is the case with Mr. B. This is his social right to visit a hospital if it is not feeling well. Same can be the case for Mr. C, who wanted to go to his relatives. So he is unable to visit his desired location due to this intersection which is not formally controlled. So if we want that everyone who is crossing through this road can reach to his destination, we need a formal mechanism. So what does formal mechanism means? So we have installed lights. So there is a red light, there is a green light, there is an orange light. So everyone knows what does red light means. Red light means that you are going to stop for a moment. Green light means now you can go forward. Orange means be ready. So there are lines on the road. We have to follow these lines. There are some lines here, there are some lines here, here and here, so that no one's rights can be violated. There is a traffic rule. Everyone has to wait when the light is red, and when it becomes green, so he can go to his destination. So by doing this, this intersection will be working fine. Everyone will reach to his destination, his location, his desired area where he wants to go. Whatever he wants to do, he can do it appropriately within time. So by applying all these rules and regulations, traffic rules, if traffic rules are prevailing at that intersection, so it will be working fine. So that is why, to basically enhance, to basically achieve the objectives of the individual society, we need formal mechanism so that they can work properly. There is no dispute among them. There is no abuse by Mr. A of Mr. B. So everyone's right is protected if we have applied formal mechanism to that intersection. So if we go back to the definition once again, what is law? Law is a formal mechanism of social control. So this is the definition, simplest definition, that how can we define law. So I'm hopeful that you would have understood the meaning of this definition and how this definition is applied under the context of society. So for example, if we take another example, let's say for example there is a food factory, and that food factory basically produces biscuits. So once again there are two mechanisms, formal and informal. So there is a customer who is going to purchase these biscuits. So these customers have their rights. So if they have paid for a product, it is their right that a proper product is provided to them. A product that has no harmful ingredients is prepared and it is delivered to them so that they can enjoy their food. So this is the objective of that customer, and it is a rightful objective. This is one of his rights. So he goes to a retail shop and he buys that biscuit. So how about informal mechanism? So this means that it will depend on the morality, ethics. So if we are going to tackle this production of biscuits with morality, so this means that the owner of the factory will decide the flavors, the raw material, how this raw material is going to be stored and produced. So there might be a case that if it is in the hands of owner, he might use some ingredient that is harmful for the customer. There can be a case that raw material is stored without applying proper temperature, so that material can be damaged. There can be a case that this product is produced in such a way that is hazardous for the environment, for example the chemical wastage. So if we are going to regulate that factory through informal mechanism, it is not going to work, because if the customer is going to eat this biscuit, it will be dangerous for his health. So what we have to do, we have to make formal procedures for that, and there is an health department in that country, so that health department will create different sorts of rules. So what rules? How to procure things, how to store products, how to produce product, how the packing of that product will be. So this food factory is bound by the rules. So if that factory is bound by the rules, the factory has to compliance with that formal mechanism at every cost. So every section of that company, every department of that company will be following these rules. So the chance of customer getting unhealthy food and getting sick is very much reduced, because company will be following these procedures and these rules. So this customer is more protected with the rules. This customer is protected when the food factory is following the rules and there is a formal mechanism. So that is why we need formal mechanism in food industry, in oil and gas industry, in education industry, in every aspect of life. How a person is going to marry another, how a person is going to be appointed as an accountant, how a person is going to basically uh, to use his consciousness, how he's going to think about something, how a person or a company is going to import a product, how a company is going to get loan from the bank, how a company is going to enter with a contract with his supplier. So all these matters must be under the umbrella of formal mechanism. If there is no formal mechanism, what will happen? There will be disputes, there will be violations of social rights, there may be chance that some individuals' rights may be violated by others, even by the organization, even by the government. So there must be some rules so that everyone should follow. So up till now, we have discussed the definition of law, and we have also discussed different examples, that how there it is. So it is, I think, understood by the students the definition of law. So the law is a formal mechanism of social control, and up till now we have discussed certain rights of individuals, and we have discussed that social control means the protection of a person's rights, and we have also discussed that there are two ways that these social rights and attributes can be protected. So formal mechanism or informal mechanism. So after discussion, we are clear that informal mechanism is unable to control the social rights. So we have to go for the formal mechanism, that is called the law. So this is how we define law. So let's move forward to next topic, and very important topic, that is, so it is, so now we are going for very important topic, that is Sources of law. What are the sources of law? Sources are the organizations who are engaged in making law. So, if the source of law is powerful, the law itself will be very powerful. So, the power of law depends on the source. So, what are two main sources of law? We will discuss further sources as well after some time. There are two basic sources of law. One is legislation and other is common law. So now we are going to discuss the two most important sources of law. Now, what is legislation? Legislation, law. Basically, these two elements are called legislation. First, the act of parliament. Act of parliament is called legislation, and then there is delegated legislation. So what is legislation? Legislation is act of parliament and delegated legislation. So both of these elements are considered as the legislation. So whenever the word legislation comes in book, so you must understand that the examiner or the author is discussing basically either act of parliament or delegated legislation. So how we are basically going to understand the concept act of parliament and delegated legislation? Let's start. So we will start from act of parliament. So as name suggests that the act is related to parliament, the outcome of parliament. So these are the laws and regulations that are made by the parliament. So in UK context, parliament consists of three elements. First of all, House of, sorry, I need to, House of Commons. Then another section of the UK's parliament is House of Lords. Then there is a stage that is called Royal Assent. So how a bill is converted into act, how parliament issues act. Parliament is the most powerful powerful source of law. Parliament can make any type of law. For example, the parliament in Singapore imposed certain different types of obligations that a bubble will not be produced in Singapore. So if a parliament wants that society obey some certain laws, it can create, it can establish any type of law. So parliament is the most powerful source of law, and in UK, parliament consists of House of Commons, House of Lords, and the last stage is royal assent. So what is House of Commons? House of Commons is basically lower house. What is the purpose of basically House of Commons? So House of Commons includes different ministers of parliaments. Those are called MPs, and these MPs are selected by voting. So in lower house, public selects MPs who are MPs, Minister of Parliament, by voting. As we vote in our country, and in every country they are called with different names. For example, MNAs, MPAs, MPs. So they are the elected personalities by the public. So same is the case in UK. These MPs are elected by the public and they sit in House of Commons. So in UK there are total 650 MPs in House of Commons. So if a bill wants, if a person wants that he he wants to basically present a bill, and he wants that this bill should be converted into rules and regulations, so that bill must be passed by House of Commons. So how this will happen? There are certain stages for that. So when the bill is presented in House of Commons for approval. So how a bill is approved by House of Commons? There are some stages for approval. So what are these stages? The stages for approval of a bill starts from first reading. This is called first reading. After that, there comes the second reading. Then there is a committee stage. The fourth stage is called report stage. And the last stage is called third reading. So these are five stage process to approve a bill from House of Commons. So what are these stages? What happens in these stages? So in first reading, basically the presenter basically presents the bill, and he'll tell about the introduction of the bill, the reason of the bill, why that bill is presented, what is the purpose, what is the objective in the society. For example, if Mr. A presents a bill and he wants to basically restrict companies who are engaged in chemical wastage, so he wants to decrease the effect of that chemical wastage, so he has made prepared a bill in which different sorts of high taxes are imposed and penalties are imposed on the organizations who are engaged in waste material, for example textile industry. So that Mr. A will present that bill in House of Commons, and he will read basic elements, and the copy of bill will be distributed among the members. Who are the members at House of Commons? They are called MPs. So a copy of that bill will be distributed among every member, every MP that is present at that time in House of Commons, and he will read them. And the presenter will speak with the House of Commons. He will tell the main purpose, why that bill is prepared, what are the consequences of that bill, what is the purpose of that bill, what are the advantages that company can gain, what are the penalties that can be imposed. So this will be a brief introduction for the members of the House of Commons, and after that, that meeting will be adjourned, and after some time, after some days, the second reading will start. So second reading, basically debate is held. So different members, different MPs of House of Commons basically debate on it. Some MPs will say that this act is very good, this bill is very good, and it is advantageous for the society. But some of them may claim that some of the clauses are not good. They can create difficulty for the organizations to operate. So there are certain lines that must be cancelled, that must be removed from the act. So this debate will happen between MPs. So second reading stage is basically a debate stage. So after that, there will be a committee stage, because it is very difficult that 650 members or 650 MPs come on a page. So it is very difficult to make consensus between 650 MPs in House of Commons. So it is better to make a committee of 20 members, and these 20 members will decide whether this bill should be carried forward to next stage or not. So a committee of 20 MPs will be made, and the committee's meetings will head outside the House of Commons in different corridors or different meeting areas. So a room will be allocated to that committee, and committee will basically held these meetings in that room occasionally according to the need. And after a specific time, when committee has completed the discussion on that bill, the next stage starts, that is called the report stage, and an amended report will be presented to full house, back to full house. So at report stage, that bill is amended according to the suggestions made by the committee stage from the members. These 20 members will suggest different sorts of recommendations. So according to those recommendations, a report will be made, and it will include different recommendations. So these recommendations will be added to this amended report. And there comes the final stage, that is third reading. So in third reading, once again, that amended report is provided to every MP. They will read it again, and after reading, at third stage, reading by MPs will be completed. Every MP will read that amended report, and at the end of third reading, voting will be held. So if more than 50% members accept or vote in the favor of that bill, then this means that this bill is approved by House of Commons. So that bill initially that was presented by Mr. A for the protection of environment, that bill is basically approved by House of Commons. So I am hopeful that you would have understood. This is what we have read about House of Commons until now. It is a lower house. Public selects by voting. The members are called MPs, Minister of Parliaments. There are total 650 MPs. So how an a bill is converted into act, there are certain stages. So first of all, that bill is presented by a person in House of Commons, and when that bill is presented, there are certain stages: first reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, and finally the third reading. So that third reading includes voting. So if more than 50% MPs vote in favor of the bill, that bill is approved finally by the House of Commons. And if more than 50% rejects that bill, means they vote against the bill. So that means that bill is not approved, it is rejected by the House of Commons. So that bill will fail. So now we are going to basically understand the approval level of House of Lords. So we are discussing the legislation, and we know that legislation is act of parliament and delegated legislation. So we have started with act of parliament. So first of all, we need to understand how acts of parliaments are made. So to understand this, we are working and we are discussing these things. So we know that that bill will be passed by House of Commons first. So if it is approved by House of Commons, then this bill will be presented to House of Lords. So now, what is the function of House of Lords? House of Lords function is examining these sorts of bills, questioning government ministers, investigating public policy made by the ministers. So this is the basic role of the House of Lords. So basically, House of Lords is the upper house. And who are the members of House of Lords? They are called the Lords. So members of the House of Lords are called the Lords. So there are total 780 Lords. There are total 780 Lords present at the House of Lords. So how these Lords are selected? On the contrary, we can see MPs at House of Commons are elected by public. But Lords, on the other hand, at House of Lords are not selected by public. So who select the Lords? Basically, Lords are selected by HOL Appointment Commission. Appointment Commission on the advice of Queen. You know, in UK there is a Queen system, and the Prime Minister. So you should know that Prime Minister is the member of House of Commons, and he will be the MP of ruling government. So he is responsible for the establishment of ministries and running of the country. So Prime Minister and Queen gives advice to House of Lords Appointment Commission. HOL stands for House of Lord. So House of Lord has its own appointment commission, and HOL appointment commission is responsible for the appointment of lords. There are two types of lords: spiritual lords, temporal lords. So temporal lords, who are temporary for the period of 3 years, are elected by HOL appointment commission, whereas the spiritual lords are basically elected by the church. So church has hold on House of Lords and their representatives are there. So the lords are the members of House of Lords. So now let's start discussion that the bill that was approved by House of Commons is presented in House of Lords now. So how it will be approved by House of Lords? So to understand this, if we draw a line so that it will not be mixed, stages of approval at House of Lord. HOL means House of Lord. So luckily stages are same. Once again there will be first reading, then second reading, then committee stage, then report stage, finally third reading. So stages are same as they were in House of Commons. So first reading, once again here the bill will be presented as it was presented in House of Commons. So you can see that stages are same. In second reading in House of Commons, debate was held. At House of Lords, in second reading, also debate will be held. But now the debate will be among the Lords of the House of Lords. Once again, a committee will be formed, 20 members, but now they will not be MPs, they will be 20 Lords. Once again, that committee will prepare an amended report. So this means that report will be further refined by the Lords. And finally, that amended report will be presented to full house. All the members, all the lords will read them again, read it again, and once again at third reading at House of Lords, voting will be held. And same is the case here. If more than 50% votes are in favor of that bill, so this means that this bill is approved from HOL, House of Lords. Is it clear? So stages are same. The difference is that now these are lords of the House of Lord. So same stages will be followed. So after that, HOL has, we can say that House of Lords have approved that bill. So then comes the last stage, that is the royal assent. So royal assent means that finally it is presented to Queen. Currently UK's Queen's name is Elizabeth II. So Elizabeth II is the Queen of UK. So that bill will be presented to that Queen, and Queen will give the approval that this bill is approved. So the approval by Queen is called royal assent. So before 1854, Queen used to give royal assent by herself. But after 1854, Lord Chancellor gives royal assent on behalf of the Queen. So Queen approves that bill, but the stamp that is compulsory for royal assent, that stamp is basically assigned, or it is stamped by the Lord Chancellor on behalf of the Queen. So when Lord Chancellor stamps that bill, it means that the royal assent is given to that bill. So finally, that bill is converted into the act. So these are the processes, and that act is the rule for the companies who are engaged, or whose functions are damaging for the environment. So the penalties that were suggested in the bill has now become act, and it will be practically applicable on all the organizations who are wasting their material, unrecycled material, to the environment. So those penalties will be enforceable against those companies. So that is how an act is made, and the act of parliament. Is it clear? I am hopeful that you persons have understood this. So I have some videos related to royal assent, and the approval or voting by House of Commons and House of Lords. So I want to share it. So one thing you should remember, that when Queen gives the royal assent, so that royal assent is announced in House of Commons and House of Lords. So the speakers of House of Common announces the royal assent in House of Common, and the Lord Speaker at House of Lords announce at House of Lords that royal assent is given by the Queen, so that everyone know that that bill is converted into the act. So let's see some short videos on how is House of Common or House of Lords works basically. I'm just going to open that video. Just wait for some seconds. It is taking much time. Well, I'm hopeful that within some seconds the video will start. I don't know why it is taking so much time. So just wait for some more moments. So, so dear students, can you see the picture of that video? UK House of Commons votes against carbon backed amendment. Okay, so I'll share the sound. Share computer sound. So it's a 1 minute 30 seconds video, and it's a voting stage at House of Commons. The voting is being carried out, and they are asking for ayes and noes. So ayes mean yes in the favor of bill, and noes means that we are not in favor of the bill. So you will see the speaker at House of Commons, and this is a scene of House of Commons, how it works, and they will announce the voting in favor and in against the vote, and it will be announced by the speaker. So let's start.
Is that the Amendment A, be made. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. Division! Clear the lobby! The question is that Amendment A be made. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. Tell us for the ayes, Nick Dakin and Thangham Debonair. Tell us for the noes, Wendy Morton and Ian Stewart.
The ayes to the right, 296. The noes to the left, 327.
The ayes to the right, 296. The noes to the left, 327. So the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock.
So you can see, dear students, that how voting is carried out, and it is announced at House of Commons by the speaker. So let's have another video. You can see another video how basically House of Lords announced the voting. So let's see. You know, at House of Lords, the speaker is called House Lord Speaker. So the Lord Speaker here will announce the announcement related to voting, whether it is in favor of the bill or it is against the bill. So just a moment, I'll share the video with you. So UK is going to leave. UK wants to leave European Union. So that Brexit bill is presented at House of Lords, and the final voting is going to take place here. And this is the scene of final voting. Let's see.
There have voted contents 358, not contents 256. So the contents have it. Okay, we'll go on, mate.
So they voted against the Brexit contract, that was that they should leave European Union. So this video was shared with you so that you can understand how is the House of Commons and how they work and how House of Lords work and how the speaker announce that announcement related to the voting that happens at the end stage of the stages of approval by House of Commons or House of Lords. So that is how basically that works. So let's get back to our class area where we were discussing the elements of sources of law. So wait for a moment. That class tab will appear shortly. So there it is. So we were discussing how the bill gets approval from the parliament. So the first stage is approval from House of Commons. So these are the stages, and then the House of Lords, and the finally royal assent is provided. So further, we need to understand some important points before the closure of class, and that are related to commencement of the act, from when that act starts commencement, and the geographical area on which so in UK there are four states: England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and finally the Scotland. So if an act is passed by the parliament, on which area it will be applied? So in England and Wales, it will automatically be applied. By default, it will be applied on England and Wales. So it is not going to apply on Northern Ireland area or Scotland area. So if someone wish to apply that act on Northern Ireland and Scotland as well, so they need to mention the names. If the names of Ireland and Scotland are mentioned in acts, then that specific act will also be enforced in Northern Ireland and Scotland as well. Otherwise, if their names are not mentioned, it will automatically be applied in England and Wales only. So this is important, the geographical enforcement of an act. And the last thing that we need to discuss today is the commencement of act. When the commencement of act starts, so the most simple point is that with royal assent, the commencement starts because that bill is approved and now it is converted into an act and it is applicable across the country. So when the royal assent is provided, you know royal assent is provided by the Queen, then that specific act has established or it is going to be enforced in that specific area. So this is the normal rule that is applied, but there are some certain rules. For example, that act can be applied on future dates. For example, let's see there is an act and its name is Minority Rights Act 2001. So minority right is the subject of act. This is the purpose for which that act is specialist established. The act is showing the source of law. So it is not common law. It is not delegated legislation. It is the act of parliament, the most important source of law. And 2001, the date is showing the date of royal assent. So this means that that bill was converted into act in 2001 and the royal assent was provided by the Queen in 2001. So yes, royal assent was given on 2001. So according to this rule, when royal assent is provided, that act starts enforcement. But the second rule, that is future date, means that if it is written in the act, if it is mentioned in act, that it will be applicable from 2003. So this means that royal assent has been given to that act, but its application will start in 2003. So future dates are important. Sometimes it is enforced on piecemeal basis. Means different sections are created. For example, an act may have section 1, section 2, section 3. So section 1 is going to be enforced in 2003, whereas royal assent is provided on 2001. But section 1 will be enforced in 2003, section 2 will be enforced in 2004, and section 3 will be enforced in 2007. So this is called piecemeal basis. So we apply sections, we enforce sections on different years. That is sometimes important if the organizations or public sector organizations need to meet some criteria before the application of law. For example, they have to make a building, they have to hire some people, they want to basically create some subordinate regulations first. So they are provided time, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year gap when applying a section before first section was applied. So that is why it is established on piecemeal basis. The most common example is Companies Act 2006. So Companies Act was established, enforced on piecemeal basis. Section 1, you can see the royal assent was provided on 2006. It is an act, source of law. Companies means the purpose of the act. So that act deemed to be organized the companies, how the tax will be calculated, how the companies are going to work, how they can recognize the assets, how the financial statements will be prepared. So this act is providing guidance for companies regarding the regulation. So Companies Act 2006 was also established with piecemeal basis. So it was, yes, royal assent was provided on 2006, but the first section was established in 2006, but the second section was enforced in 2008, and the third section was enforced in 2011. So there is a case that an act is provided royal assent on 2006, but its enforcements may start in future dates, or different sections may have different dates of enforcement. So this is important. An examiner can ask you to basically justify the commencement of the act. So I am hopeful that you would have understood today's lecture. So today we have discussed the definition of law, what is law, what is formal mechanism, what is informal mechanism, what is social control. We have discussed all these important concepts. Then we came to sources of law. The two main major sources of the law are the common law and the legislation. So we started with the legislation. We saw that legislation has two more components, Act of Parliament and delegated legislation. So today we have discussed the main component, Act of Parliament, how a bill can be converted into an act through House of Commons, through House of Lords, and then finally royal assent is provided by the Queen, and then that bill is converted into the act and it is started application. So we have seen that the geographical coverage of the act by default and by other means, and we have also seen the commencement date and how that act will be enforceable and on what date. So these are different points and rules and regulations that we have discussed. So it is very important that you revise these things before next class. We are going to discuss in the first 5 to 10 minutes that what we studied in the last class. So you must memorize these points. These are easy to memorize after class, especially. So if it is not revised immediately and there is a gap, if you are going to revise it on 2 days, after 2 days, after 3 days, so it will be very difficult to revise them because most of the points would have skipped from your mind. So it is very important that you revise everything or every lesson on that specific day. So I am hopeful that you would have understood these points. So stay safe. Is there any question? Is there any question from your side, dear students, or should we end the class? Okay then. Take care. Bye.